Hello and welcome to In Focus. I'm your host, Mike Land. Today we devote our show to Proposition 8. The fall ballot measure would reverse the California Supreme Court's decision to allow same-sex couples to marry. If passed, a new section would read, quote, only marriage between a man and a woman is valid or recognized in California, end quote. On the program today is Kerry Anderson, president of the local chapter of United Families of California. We will also have the president of the Pacific Pride Foundation, Mark Asman. Well, we flipped the coin, and Kerry, you are first. First, tell us about yourself and United Families.
Myself, I'm the mother of 5 children. They range in age from 22 years down to 10 years old. I devote full time to my family at this point, except for my work in United Families. I used to be a broadcast meteorologist, and I did that up until about 10 years ago, and with 5 children, it was a little bit busy around the house, so home is where I spend most of my time. United Families is an organization. It's a nonprofit, non-religious organization that lobbies for family law. And most of the time is spent in the United Nations. They have status in the United Nations, and that's where most of the lobbying goes on. Because what we found is that what happens there affects the rest of the country and affects what happens in the home.
And the local chapter that you are involved with is located where?
Right now in Thousand Oaks, actually down in Orange County. I'll be taking over as president in November.
All right. Well, Kerry, in May, the California Supreme Court overturned Proposition 22 and said, I'm going to read this, individual sexual orientation does not constitute a legitimate basis to deny legal rights, in this case, the right to marry. When that happened, how did that make you feel? What was your reaction?
Oh, my reaction? Well, first of all, it just doesn't seem fair that 4 judges can impose their will, where 61% of the voters back in 2000, they said what they wanted. They wanted marriage to be defined as between one man and one woman. That's the basis of the United States. It's the rights of the people to vote. So that didn't seem fair that 4 people could have that big of an impact on our state.
Right. And just in a nutshell, why are you in favor of Proposition 8?
I think it's very easy. It's been interesting. Over the summertime, I've been writing articles. I've also been writing campaign literature. And I sat down one day as I was thinking, why marriage? Why marriage? And I was like, wait a second. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had this debate. Tell our grandparents that we would be debating over marriage. We all know what a marriage is. A marriage is the union between a man and a woman so that a family can be created. And that family structure is vital to our society. We need stable families. As a mother, I know that the influence that I have on my children is so incredibly important. That's where I spend my time, is devoting my time to them. So if I see that the laws are going to break down to the point that I don't have that protection so that I have the ability to nurture those children with a husband, that they have within that home the ability to learn about gender, to learn about service, I'm very concerned, and so that's why I've gotten involved.
And do you feel that the marriage means less when it's not the traditional definition of a man and a woman?
Well, it just isn't a marriage. It's not that it's less. It simply isn't a marriage. I mean, to me, look at nature. All of nature knows what the union of a man and a woman will create children. And it's still that way. Even if you have a same-sex marriage, they cannot create their own children. The only way that you can create a child is with a male and a female. Everyone knows that. All of nature knows that. But somehow the most intelligent species on this planet is now debating whether or not that's a marriage. A marriage is a man and a woman and the family that can be created.
All right, we're going to put up a recent poll in the Los Angeles Times that was about the end of August. It showed 54% right now are opposed to Prop 8, while only like 40% support it. So that can't be going well for your side.
What we have found, and I've been walking neighborhoods talking to people, we have a lot of volunteers that are out during the weekends and speaking to people. We've found that it's about 25% of the people are like, obviously, 25% of the people are concerned about homosexual couples having their own rights, which they actually have all of the rights. They just don't have that term marriage. And then there's about 50% that haven't made up their mind. I think the reason that is because so many people have heard for so long that we need to be tolerant and we need to be careful. And so I think they want to be educated right now. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to educate and remind people. I mean, this isn't new. Mm-hmm. We're going back to the very basics here. How long has marriage been around for? Yeah. This is a huge social experiment that, in very murky waters, to change the definition of marriage. One of the things that I think is really important to point out is that when we change marriage law, we have already seen a change in our society. For instance, with no-fault divorce. 50 years ago, no-fault divorce was created. When that law was changed, our marriages have changed, and it has affected our society. Personally, I know that to be the case because my parents divorced. There was a time period that our family did not have the support of a father. My mother had to try and provide for the children. There was less time to focus on the children. This all comes back to the children. We need to create laws that make it so that we have the very best environment for our children to be raised in.
All right, we're just getting started. More with Kerry Anderson after the break. And we carry on with United Families of California. Kerry Anderson is our guest. I wanted to put up the second poll that was from the LA Times late in August, which is more in favor of what you're supporting. 47% split is, can we get there? Well, do you support or oppose allowing gay men and lesbians to marry? Now, that's a split. So there seems to be some kind of confusion over these topic. Can you explain why that poll favors yours and the other one says you to the right?
Okay, you've been in the news long enough, but we know how polls work. Depending on who creates and crafts the question, you will elicit a certain response. Am I concerned about the polls? Not necessarily. Before Proposition 22, when I worked on Proposition 22, the polls showed that it was not going to pass. What happened when the Californians went into the voters' booth and they voted, and the privacy there, 61%. I mean, I will admit, I was shocked at how high the number was, and I was concerned. So, yes, would I love to see the polls right now saying that 99% of Californians support Proposition 8? Obviously.
Right.
And my concern, here's the concern, though. The concern is that I think that we need to get out and educate people, and not so much educate, remind them, this is back to tradition. We know what works for families, and we know the families work for our society. So let's get back to what we already know.
Now, you said Proposition 22, 61%. Now, their argument is that was then, this is now. Attitudes have changed over 8 years.
Do you really think that we've really changed that much in 8 years? 8 years compared to the millennia that we have been around. I think that there has been a lot of rhetoric that people have listened to, a lot of indoctrination from the other side. I think that the reason that happens is that families don't have the time to get out and have their voice in the government. I know for myself, I'm busy running kids to baseball practice. I haven't got up and really spent as much time voicing my opinion. And there's also the concern when you do voice your opinion that there's some repercussions. You know, we want to be a little bit careful about what we say. So I think what's happening is that families haven't voiced their concerns as much as they should and had their voice in government. And I think it's time for families to get up and be a little bit more vocal.
Speaking of families, do you think that kids do better when there's a father and a mother?
I am certain of that fact. Absolutely certain, and I can speak to that because I've been married for 26 years. I've been raising children for 22 years. My son's sitting here in the audience, and he was just complaining, oh, my mom's around. She sees everything. Yes, all the studies show that it really matters, and marriage matters. It matters to a child to know that they have that stability, that they know they can depend on their parents to financially support them. You know, think about all of the money that a family puts towards a child's education. You know, they go to the very best colleges. Well, that's nothing compared to giving them the stability of a father and a mother.
Right.
It's vital. It's just vital.
You brought up tolerance. Don't gays and lesbians deserve the same rights?
They have the same rights. They just don't get the definition, the title of marriage, because it simply isn't a marriage. But they have all of the same rights. In fact, right now, all the laws that have passed give them the same rights to have partnerships, but they just do not have the right to call themselves married because they just simply are not married.
We're going to put some information on the screen on your website, UnitedFamiliesCA.org, and people, I know it's a really tough campaign for both sides. You need a lot of volunteers on both sides and money support, right?
And we'd suggest that they go to that or protectmarriage.com, and they're able to volunteer through there. And yes, we need all the help we can get. This is not a large organization. This is a grassroots organization, and so many of us are just giving our time, which I am doing, and spending the time between helping my children on the computer and getting the message out.
Kerry, really appreciate you coming here today, and good luck.
Thank you very much for your time.
When we come back, we'll hear